I'll just tell everybody a little bit about Reverend Linda Oglesby before I introduce her and bring her into the show. She recently presented at the Church of Light's 2013 conference in Albuquerque. It was called the Alchemist's Laboratory, Transforming Everyday Life, and I had the great opportunity of attending that conference, and that's where I heard Linda speak, and she is just a world-class speaker. I think she's wonderful. She's also an ordained minister of the Universal Foundation for Better Living, a licensed teacher for the Johnny Coleman Academy, the teaching arm of Christ Universal Temple located in Chicago. And I'll ask Linda to tell us a little bit about that church later on, because it's quite an interesting story. She's also a member of Unity of Oak Park in Illinois, and she's taught New Thought metaphysical classes. She's scheduled to teach Spiritual Alchemy, which is a 5-week class at Unity of Oak Park, and that's based on the presentation and the material from the Alchemy conference at the Church of Light. And she has an undergraduate degree in business administration and a master's in business as well, with an emphasis on accounting. She's a smart lady. Well, Linda, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here.
Oh, we're excited, Linda. When I heard you speak in Albuquerque, I was blown away, and I just thought we have to try and get you on the radio show. So thank you for making time to join us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I've really been looking forward to this.
Well, we're very much looking forward to it. And I want to ask you, first of all, Linda, about your awareness of metaphysical truth in the Bible, because I was particularly excited and impressed by the way you are able to articulate metaphysical knowledge in the context of the Bible. It's wonderful.
Oh, well, I think the Bible is very much of a foundation of the moral ethics in America, and not the literal interpretation of it, but the metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. The Bible is the history of humankind. It tells us about our generation, how we were created, our degeneration, how we fell from the high point of our creation, and our regeneration, how we are growing back to that part of us that is divine. And the Bible really tells us how we came out of God with a divine estate, forgetting our origin, that we are heirs to all that God is, and we suffer because we forget who we really are, and that we are eternal. So I think the Bible, the literature of the Bible, can be very instrumental in a person developing their spiritual attributes when you really understand it and then apply the principles that have been available to us and that were taught by Jesus, who became the Christ.
It's very interesting because I've studied metaphysics a lot. I know you have as well. And I was just so excited to hear you correlate things like spiritual or mental alchemy and the Bible. Could you explain to us a little about alchemy and relate that to the Bible, Linda?
Oh, absolutely. When I think about the Bible and the work that so many people do, they're always praying outside of themselves. And one of the foundations that I saw in the Bible is, as a man thinketh in his heart. Well, your thinking relates to your feeling, your heart, because in ancient literature they didn't have the terminology for your heart, which is your feeling nature. So if you're thinking and feeling and it's congruent with your higher purpose, then you will have that manifestation of absolute good, which is the highest good for all concerned. Now, how does that relate to the Bible? Or even astrology. Let's look at astrology. Have you ever wondered why no instruction manual came with you? Why is it so difficult to understand what your purpose is? Why all of the questions of what am I supposed to do? Why do I think like this? What is my life direction? Well, if you look at astrology, you come to the realization that it's not a predictive tool. It's a tool that you can use to understand the thoughts that were brought with you into this current life. Once you understand that, you can take the principles that are taught in the Bible and transform your life, change your life, and actually have the life that was promised by every prophet in the Bible. And in particular, Jesus. He said, I came so that they would have life and have it more abundantly. And he taught those principles of love, of faith, of forgiveness, of all the attributes that we can actually work in our life to improve our life. And that's what transformation is. You're going from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness, and you're doing that by actually working these principles in your life, these spiritual principles, because after all, we're here for such a short period of time. You'll look up and, it's all over, and what have you accomplished? Well, actually, when you look at it, you are here eternally learning these lessons because you're growing back into the consciousness that you came out of, which is the consciousness of absolute good, which we call God or cosmic consciousness or the source or whatever you want to call it. You can call it by many different names, but actually you're growing back to that source with each lesson, each lifetime of experiencing this thing that we call life.
I love the way you explain it, Linda. I really do. We're quite interested in the tarot, and we often talk about how the tarot cards correlate to the planets and the signs of the zodiac, as well as their decanates, etc.
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
What is your view on the lessons of the tarot deck and how they might correlate with the Bible?
Well, actually, the tarot deck, to me, is speaking to you on a subjective level, and everything, all these, the tarot, the astrology, all these are tools that are meant to be used in understanding who and what you are. The symbolism in the tarot deck. Actually, when I first saw the tarot deck from the Church of Light, it called my name, and I looked at that tarot deck and the symbolism, and it just resonated with my soul. And that's how I got involved with the Church of Light. And as a result of that tarot deck, it allowed me to go deeper into understanding who and what I was. For example, the Fool. Let's look at the symbolism of the Fool. You come into the world, you really don't have an understanding of anything, but you understand everything because you're not that innocent baby that is appearing. You are a soul that is in evolution. And with each lifetime, you're acquiring more and more knowledge so that you will have mastery and dominion over who? You. Because you are the only person that you can change. You are the only person that can grow and expand your consciousness. So you can use the tarot, the symbolism of every major card of the tarot, to work with your levels of consciousness. As a matter of fact, I had even did a series of meditation just to, on a soul level, understand the symbolism of the deck as it applies to me and what my understanding is of my life and the direction that I need to take in my life.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool for meditation, isn't it? And for receiving guidance oneself.
Exactly. Because actually everything is geared toward, well, when you get to a certain level of understanding, because even in listening to you, I listen to your blogs and your different interviews, and I'm thinking, Well, Steve has a wonderful spiritual practice. Obviously, he is in touch with his higher self, and you are the conduit of that knowledge that you can share with others that will resonate at their soul level, and they will have the opportunity to grow to that next level of understanding. Because we're all growing back to the source, and we're all, in fact, becoming the Christ at different stages of consciousness. You don't achieve that in one lifetime, I don't believe. I think some people have already achieved it. But, of course, if you have already achieved a level of development, you can't share it with the world. Otherwise, they would hang you up on the cross because your thinking would be so beyond where we are currently. You become at one with all that is, and everything is available to you. You have master and dominion over your thoughts and your feelings. And you just transcend the limitation of appearances. It's a wonderful thing.
It really is. It really is.
Yes.
Can you take a story from the Bible for us, Linda, and explain it to us in metaphysical terms?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I had really thought about where would you start in the Bible. There's so many wonderful stories that are teaching instruments. And the one that I like the best is at the very beginning of the Bible. It's the 7 steps of creation. Because just as God created, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, creates, that's how we create as well. And the first step is let there be light. And you find that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. It says, and God said, let there be light, which means that you have to have the light of understanding from creation itself. You have to be open and receptive to the thought to enter your mind. You can't be closed off. You have to be open. Step 2, it says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. The firmament represents the attribute of faith. Well, what is faith? Faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the ability to shape substance. It's not belief, because you can believe anything, good, bad, or indifferent. But with faith, which is linked to the source, which is the light, God, it can only bring in good. Not sometimes, not maybe, but all the way. Always, faith is going to bring good into your life. The third step would be, is let the waters under the heavens be gathered together. And this means, in the beginning, the mind had formative power. And right now, when you're trying to manifest something in your life, you have to be able to see it. Even when it's not there. That's what your imagination is doing for you. You have to be able to perceive and believe and have faith that you, as an individual, can have this thing that you say that you want. The fourth would be from Genesis 1:14, let there be light in the firmament of heaven. Now, the 2 great lights represent understanding and faith. My understanding, no. My understanding is limited because I'm in it. But to really understand it, I have to be above it. I have to allow the presence and the power of absolute good, of God, to develop that understanding of whatever it is in my life. And in addition to the understanding, not my will, but the highest will, which is the good for everybody. Not just me, because I'm living in an environment with other people. So I want everyone to share in whatever good I'm trying to see for myself. The fifth commandment, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. What in the heck are they talking about? Well, the moving creatures are symbolic of thoughts that move in your mind. You know, when you first start having the light shine in your thinking, all types of thoughts will come in your mind, because thinking is the movement of ideas in your mind. The fowl or the birds represent ideas as they approach some type of spiritual understanding, an understanding that's higher than where I'm currently able to think or understand in my humanness. So I want to allow those thoughts that are above and beyond me to unfold in and through me. The sixth commandment, or the sixth day of creation, is let the earth bring forth living creatures after its own kind. And God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Well, that sixth day is the realization that things can come to me, that I can actually actualize a thought through my allowing the presence or the connection that I have with the creative power of the universe to flow through me. That there's a real possibility that I know that this is coming to fruition if I stay the course, if I stay focused, if I keep my ideas pure and singled eye on the light that's coming through me. And finally, it says the seventh day is the Sabbath, or rest. After you've done all your work, you've allowed the light to come through in your thinking, you have faith, the perceiving power of the mind, that this will manifest. You have used your imagination. You've seen the possibility for yourself. You've allowed the understanding and the will of God to flow through you. You've, in the fifth step, you've let the discrimination, or let's see, the waters, the creative thoughts to just flow through you. And your sixth step, your realization. The seventh step, I'm going to rest, hand it over, release it, let it go, and stand firm, and just let that whole process come together until I finally reach my goal. The 7 steps of creation. We do it all the time. One example, when I was a much younger person, I lived in California, and I guess this was like in the 80s. And like anyone else, I was really caught up in just the material aspects of living. And I always wanted to have a luxury car. And I had a friend of mine who really worked with the principles of manifestation. And so many people are caught up in the law of attraction. Well, yes, the law of attraction really works through you, but it's much more to life than just, physical things. But the first thing you have a realization of is the physical manifestation of something. And so he gave me a little technique, and this is the technique. I wanted a really nice luxury car. We went down to the dealership, and they allowed me to sit in a luxury car, and I got the smell of it and the feel of the steering wheel and the whole 9 yards. That was the sensation, the ideas, the imagination coming through to my mind, because at that time I didn't even think that something like that could, happen for me. And I got pictures. I had them all around my bed. I would wake up in the morning looking at these pictures and go to bed at night looking at them. It just so happened a friend of mine that I was totally unaware of was importing luxury cars from Germany. And her last transaction fell through, and she called me, and I got the exact car that I had been visualizing for about 2 months I bought the car for $5,000, drove it for 10 years, and sold it for $3,000. And it was using the 7 steps of creation. You can use this for not only the physical manifestation, but also for spiritual manifestation when you're working to develop consciousness. Because after all, that's what we really are. We are conscious beings. We're much more than just physical beings.
I love the way you describe this, Linda, and I love the way you're completely comfortable and at peace with metaphysics and the Bible, because so many people use the Bible to almost restrict other people and their beliefs, but you seem to be deeply in tune with the truth.
Oh, yes. And can I tell you one other little story? Recently we had intensive classes at Unity of Oak Park, and we were reviewing scriptures that I really like to do because locked within those scriptures are esoteric lessons, the very deep meaning of what was trying to be conveyed in a language that is quite antiquated. And we were going over some writings by Marcus Borg. And for those that are familiar with biblical scholars, he's right up there. And he really gives the historical lessons of Jesus, who became the Christ. They have the Jesus of faith that they have, the church has built a tradition around that so many people believe that, this man was born from a virgin, and if you want to believe that, that's fine. That's where you are. And until you get, to the next level, that's where you should stay. But for those of us that want to understand the deeper meaning of his life, this man was born during a time when they didn't even know the world was round. And people really did believe that God was angry and would punish you for, the most de minimis thing. However, he transcended the world that he was living in, and he touched the cosmic consciousness of the universe. And if you study the history of who he really was, then you can, really grasp the full impact of his life and how you can take what he did, the principles and the spiritual practices that he had, into your life and transcend the limiting thoughts and beliefs of this life and actually touch cosmic consciousness. But I think you can do that with so many of the avatars. The Buddha did it. In Hinduism, they have the gods and all the different things that you can do to transcend the limiting beliefs of a society that you might live in. And that's the message, really, because there is no limit to what God or your definition of cosmic consciousness is. And as we evolve as human beings, each generation becomes wiser, and we can see the connectedness in the universe. And so I think the Bible is one of the tools that you can use if you can get beyond the literal interpretation and go to the esoteric interpretation. And I would really like to recommend, one good book is Remedial Christianity by Paul Allen Laughlin, and then the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary that was written by Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, to get a deeper meaning of some of the stories and characters of the Bible, because it's really the states of consciousness that each individual is going through at their level of understanding, because we're all at different levels of consciousness and awareness. So wherever you are, that's where you start. And you work from there, because you have all of eternity to evolve and to become more than what you are right now.
It's incredible. I love the way you describe all of this, Linda. It's really, really good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's really wonderful. And I want to ask you, we'll take a short commercial break in a moment, but before we do, could you tell us a little bit about the church and the story of the manifestation of the funds required for the church, Linda?
Oh, for it's Christ Universal Temple?
Yes.
Yes, founded by the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. This is so amazing. Every year she would tell the story of how she attended Unity School of Christianity in the 1950s, and it was really horrific for her because she could not stay on campus. She would drive to, it was Kansas City, and then she would go to Unity School of Christianity, which was in Lee Summit, but she couldn't spend the night. The reason that she got involved with Unity, when she was a young woman, her doctor called her and told her that she had 6 months to live. This was in the 1950s. It's now 2013, and she is still living. Probably the doctor has made his transition. But when she was told that, she was so distraught that she was walking through the living room of her home, and she knocked the book off the table, and the book fell open, and she read this statement: "God is my health. I can't be sick." And she started arguing with the statement. And her mother came into the room and said, "Don't argue with the statement. Go find out what they're talking about." And that's how she ended up at Unity. So she went there, and she was the first African American that ended up living on the campus after her classmates complained. And she graduated. She came back to Chicago and started teaching Unity teachings around her, I think her kitchen table. And it grew, and she ended up getting a storefront church. She outgrew that. She was the first African-American minister that built a new church on the south side of Chicago. They outgrew that. And all along the way, she's affirming and letting Spirit lead her. She ended up building a facility that I think it seats almost 4,500. It's on a 33-acre plot of land. They have the main church that includes the sanctuary that seats the 4,500. They have a school of metaphysics. They have one of the largest metaphysical bookstores. They also have a banquet hall, and they have the Johnny Coleman Academy, which is an elementary school that's state-of-the-art. And they have parking for maybe 5,000 people. It's an absolutely beautiful facility. And it's all paid for. So Johnny Coleman could teach you the principles of manifestation. It's just incredible the things that she accomplished as a woman during a time when it was very, very difficult for female ministers. And she was one of the most successful Unity ministers in the history of Unity. And the church had a membership of maybe 8,000, and that was the largest New Thought church in the world.
An incredible story. It just shows
yes.
what we can achieve when we are aligned with Spirit,
Absolutely.
with God.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. So, and she really taught principles. Her lectures, listening to her, it's just riveting. The first time I heard her, she just gave me goosebumps all up and down. I was like, oh my God, who is this woman? So, it's quite a story, and it's just amazing to realize that she believed what she taught, and then she demonstrated what she believed. So there you go.
Fantastic. Well, Linda, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll continue our discussion after that.
All right, thank you.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
Well, welcome back, Linda. Can I ask you now, Linda, to tell us a little about the history of the Bible?
Oh, thank you so much. I'd like to talk about the history of the Bible. I think so many people really believe that God sat down one day with his pen, or maybe he had either, depending on what time of history they're thinking of, either he had a typewriter, a pen, and a bottle of ink, or I guess his laptop. I don't know, but they never considered the history of the Bible. When we look at the Bible, you have the Bible is a Greek word meaning books, and that's exactly what the Bible is. It's a compilation of many books that have been written over a long period of time. We had the original manuscript. We have ancient copies, but the first copy that was ever done was the Vulgate Bible. And the man responsible for that, he translated it from Latin to English, and they actually burned him at the stake. We have the Wycliffe, we have the Tydell, we have a Coverdale, and actually the Bible as we know it, the King James Version, which I think is so hilarious, because history says that King James, the son of a sister of Elizabeth, the daughter of Henry VIII, was actually gay. And he commissioned the King James Version of the Bible, and he used the King James Version of the Bible as a tool, because during that period of time, people could not read. If you go to the great cathedrals in Europe, you'll find all of these wonderful pictures depicting the stories of the Bible, and that's how people learned the Bible. They couldn't read the Bible, but they could go to the church and look at the pictures and understand the stories of the Bible. And all those stories were teaching a moral principle, a code of conduct, how to conduct yourself in your life. And the other interesting thing that most people don't realize about the King James Version of the Bible is that all the royalties from that Bible go to the crowned head of England. So the wealth of the royal family, as we would say in my community, they have very deep pockets that go back for centuries. The other thing that I think most if you're not a real student of the Bible, is that the traditions that were developed by the church, and I mean the Roman Catholic Church, is the basis of worship now. I think it was in trying to think of. They had a conference, for lack of a better word, in 425 in the Common Era, where they decided that there would be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And that's where it started. It was not original with the development of Christianity. All of that came very late in the development of the church tradition. And I think people should be aware that when you start talking about, oh, no, we have the Holy Trinity, well, that was a creation of the church tradition and so many traditions that we take as coming directly from the Bible. No, it did not. The other thing that I think most of us need to be aware of is that the original the original language of the Bible was Aramaic. And the Aramaic language used a number of idioms or slang in their different meanings. So sometimes when you have a scripture that you're looking at, you have to consider that originally it was translated from Aramaic, then it went to the Greek language, then it got to the Latin, and finally it got to English. And all along, as you do all these different translations, you're going to come up with something that's totally different from the original meaning. There is a Bible that you can get that would really help. It's the Aramaic Bible, and it's written by Lamsa. Dr. Lamsa did a translation from the Aramaic, and it would give you a different reading. In our last scriptural class, we even reread the translation for the great prayer that Jesus taught, and you would get a different interpretation. So I think that there's so many different things that when you're studying the Bible, it's more than just reading a particular interpretation of the Bible. And then there are various interpretations that are available, like the standard Revised Bible. There are different types of study Bibles that you can obtain now. I even have an archaeological Bible that really talks about the land where the different Bible stories came from and the society that those stories came out of. And when you look at the landscape and the culture and the society, you kind of can see how those stories were written to different cultures for a particular reason and to address the needs of the people of those times. So it does not take away from the meaning, because it's a deeper meaning in those stories that would be applicable today. So that's why I always like to refer back to Scripture if I'm really trying to go within my own thoughts and feelings to elicit a higher level of consciousness, so that I can build that imperishable Christ body that so many ministers like to talk about, but they can't tell you how to get there. Now,
I like the fact, Linda, that you really help us to understand how we can purify ourselves spiritually. And I know the Church of Light teaching is very much about spiritual purification, understanding one's soul better, understanding the world better, understanding how to work with energy, with spirit, with God, to make a contribution in the world, and to live a joyful, abundant life. Can you give us some specific tips, practical tips about things that we can do to be more aligned with spirit and with God in life, and also tips about how we can become most successful most contributing and happy in life?
Well, I can only speak from a personal experience, because everyone experience, God is an experience, is not somebody out in the sky watching you or punishing you or anything like that. It's an experience that you have on an individual level. The most important thing I think that anyone can do is to have a spiritual practice. A spiritual practice is prayer, meditation, sitting in the silence. Prayer is your communion with God, not that supplication where you're begging for something, because God has given you everything that you could ever need to be successful in life. You have to unlock it within you. You already have talents and skills and abilities that are available in you, and you have to do the work to bring those talents, those skills, those abilities out of you. I know the emphasis now is, even in our educational system, is to get all this information, which is good because you want to stay current. But the most important thing is within you, and you can acquire that by having that spiritual practice. And I would say that going from a prayerful state will lead you to a contemplative state where you get to the point where you're calm enough to be quiet. In our society, we're just bombarded all the time with talking or listening and being, not being, just doing. We're always busy. And so many of us, we are afraid to be alone and spend time with ourselves. And if you can't spend time with yourself, why would you think someone else would want to spend time with you? Learn to be with you, to calm yourself down enough to be still. That contemplative state is going to lead to, hopefully, a meditative state where you can just be still to listen for direction and guidance. Now, sometimes the direction and guidance might happen when someone says something to you in passing, but you will know that it's coming from your taking the time to be still and quiet and making your connection with your sources, which is from the inside out, because it never comes from the outside in. It's from the inside out. And the only way you can do that is to become still and quiet and calm. And even in the Bible, it says God is found in the silence, not in the rushing of the winds or all this exterior stuff that's going on, but it's the stillness and the calmness from within you. And actually, once you become still and quiet and you build within yourself that centeredness, you develop a certain amount of confidence in your abilities. And that in itself will open up doors that you never thought were ever available. The other thing that I think that's really important, and we talk about this at Unity of Oak Park all the time, Reverend Halise or even Reverend Billings, and Johnny Coleman used to talk about this as well, is that this belief that your happiness is outside of you, no, there's no, you might be happy temporarily, but your joy is from the inside out. You can share your joy with someone, but it's not something that anyone can give to you. It comes from you. So this temporary fix, this Band-Aid you might have, this temporary satisfaction, this temporary neediness that you have, if you just take the time to be with you, learn to like you, learn to love you, learn to appreciate you, learn to affirm who you are, will lead to that joy that will come from the inside and show up as your life, your world, and your affairs in a most positive way, and then you will start to attract all those things. Jesus put it like this: seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is within you. We already have that within us. But we have to do the seeking, we have to do the looking, we have to do the knocking, and we have to really want it. Not a temporary thing, I'm thinking about doing that, or maybe I'll do that. No, you really have to want and seek that the centeredness, that joy, that complete fulfillment. And that's really what it feels like. You feel at one with, and you have no desire for anything else. But when you get to that point where you have no desire for anything else, then you have everything. You have the complete satisfaction. You have the joy. You have the peace of mind. And nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. That's what it feels like. Nothing. I've read the Buddha said that. Rumi, talked about it. So many of the ancient, teachers or prophets or whatever you want to call it, they talked about it. But that's really what it is learning to become still and quiet and make that inner connection, that oneness with. And it's a wonderful thing, but it takes work. And it takes time, and you have to start wherever you are. And even if you don't get there initially, if you keep at it, you will. It doesn't happen overnight. And you never beat yourself up because you're not there, because you're always in the process of becoming. And even when you get to that point where you are there, there's even more. I laugh sometimes. In classes I've had, they always say, well, we live in the third dimension, but we're governed by the fourth dimension. Well, if there's a fourth dimension, there's a fifth and a sixth, and on into infinity, because there's always more of God. There's always more good to be experienced. There's always more growth that I can have if I'm willing to work with me.
That's wonderful. And when you were speaking about the dimensions, it reminded me of the fact that we say astrology describes the fourth dimension.
Yes, it really does. It really does, because there's no space and time in who you really are, because you're always becoming. And astrology is allowing you to peek into that fourth dimension. And it's your decision how much you want to go into it, or not. But eventually everyone will. And the mere fact that this is 2013, and only in America, because everywhere else I've ever visited, when I was in China, it just amazed me how everything is, all the palaces are laid out according to astrology. If when I was in I was in Dubai, and they have they said it was an astronomy museum, but actually when I got up in there, it was all astrology. And you go to India, and it's all astrology. And you go to anywhere in Europe, they talk about astrology, and everyone uses it. And then you come to America, and everybody has this little box that they put God in, and then they climbed into the box. And they say, okay, this is the whole world. And it's like, well, no, there's always more. Your little definition is just your little definition, because there's always more, especially when you speak of spirit, when you speak of God. There's always more. But everything is a tool that you can choose to use to experience more of what God is. Or you can choose to just sit there and, go with the flow, or go with the world. Or as Jesus said, be in the world, but don't be of the world. Yeah, I'm here in the world, but I'm not going to be limited by the thoughts of the world that I'm living in, because I know that there's always more, and there's always more to experience, and that everything is an opportunity to experience more of God and to use the tools to uncover all of my latent possibilities and potentials, because there's more. And I don't want to be in a little box ever. And that's
You're
why I
certainly
love the Church
not,
of Light.
Linda. You've opened my eyes, and every time I hear you speak, I learn more. It's wonderful to have you here on the show, and I'll be listening to this interview a number of times to make sure I've absorbed everything you've taught us.
Yes. Have you ever taken any of Christopher's class? Oh, God, he's like a walking cosmic consciousness. I don't want to say encyclopedia because that would be limiting Christopher Gibson at the Church of Light. He is like cosmic consciousness walking in a physical body. It just, every time I think, oh yeah, Christopher's like this. No, it's just all these different dimensions of him that keep opening up, and it's like that with everyone at the Church of Light.
Yes, yeah.
I just love
He's
it.
a wonderful guy. Very, very knowledgeable, very smart. Well, Linda, thank you for being with us. It's been absolutely wonderful. I'd love you to come back and join us again next year.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I was so pleased to meet you. And the conference was just absolutely wonderful. I'm just thinking cosmic consciousness, God, all the time. My higher self for opening these doors so I can experience more of life.
Wonderful. Well, you're an inspiration to us, Linda, and thank you once again. It's been very interesting to have you with us.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Have a wonderful evening.
You too, Linda. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.